All right, so we're live. Welcome, everyone. Hello. All right.
It's like a rock concert.
Thanks for joining us. I know we're winding down on the day, so we're really glad that you could be here. Today we're going to talk about business continuity planning in an ever-changing IT landscape, because business continuity is one of those topics that we've seen organizations really struggle with to get off the ground. So we really want to have that conversation. My name is Theresa Miller, and I am joined here.
Phoummala Schmitt, also known as Exchange Goddess.
So before we dive in any deeper, I just wanted to share a little bit of personal background on the more lighter and fun side. So last fall, we were out here in Vegas for a conference, and I escaped for a little while and did my first tandem skydive. So that was a lot of fun, and I'm glad I did it. I'm not a gardener by nature, but I have taken on the challenge of growing roses in the Midwest, which can be very harsh climate. But my roses do survive in the summer, of course not through the winter. And I enjoy a nice latte or coffee from time to time.
I didn't really do anything as fun as Theresa. My big thing that I did this year was I just survived an Exchange 2016 migration. So I would think that's a pretty big feat. I almost died, but you know, I'm here.
All right, so back to business continuity planning. You may be having a hard time getting leadership to pay attention to even getting this project off the ground. So take a moment here, if this is you, trying to get the attention of leadership. Disaster recovery is important to you.
Or if this is you, help. I think a lot of organizations, you know, sometimes see this as their DR planning when it actually happens.
All right, so here's our goal for today in the short time that we have with you. We're going to talk about business continuity planning and disaster recovery, again, from what we're seeing today in the enterprise. We're then going to talk about some of the problems that we also see organizations being faced with in a little bit more detail. And then we're going to take a closer look at some of the more modern options for you as you start making decisions now that you may hopefully have the opportunity to get this off the ground.
Okay, so BCDR. Everybody wants it. It's like the dream. You know, it's on your wish list in IT. What happens when your data center goes down, or if your server, you know, goes down? Everybody thinks or wants to have this, but not everybody actually has it. I mean, just the means to implement a DR plan takes so much planning and resources that oftentimes it's just, you know, put on the back burner. We'll put it in phase 4 of the project, or, you know, when we have money next year in the budget, we'll do it. And a lot of times it's forgotten.
So who here is actively doing disaster recovery? Let's start with that. Who has a disaster recovery plan within your enterprise? Okay.
That's not bad. Do you actually practice it? Like do DR planning? Okay. So see, a lot of organizations are like that. I have a DR, you know, plan. Here's my plan. I wrote it up. But did you actually go out and practice it, implement it, and test it? A lot of organizations don't do that. I actually used to work for an organization. We did it twice a year. We used to pretend that our data center blew up. We got in the car, picked up our backup tapes, went off-site, and practiced it. And found out things didn't work what we planned on doing.
So that gets to our next issue here. So what's holding you back? Why don't you have a disaster recovery plan? Would someone be willing to share what you're experiencing in your organizations? Money, that's very common. Do you find that disaster recovery gets the attention, like it's a conversation that happens and then it gets cut, or it doesn't even make the list because of the cost?
Well, yeah, you make it's like the insurance policy. until something happens, nobody thinks about it. And then when it does happen, oh my God, money comes, come in from everywhere, and someone's printing, dollar bills for you. It's the insurance policy that people forget. The VPs, the managers. Well, it may not happen to us. We don't need that insurance policy because it costs money to implement a DR plan.
Yeah. That's a great point, because that's gonna.
Is it really somebody else's problem, or is it still your problem? It's your data. But it's still your data, so you still should have some type of plan in the know what they are doing as part of their DR and make it part of your DR plan. Because at the end of the day, it's your data, and they don't really care it's your data. I mean, they do, but they don't. You're responsible for your data for the business, and I think it's almost the misconception. Oh, we're in the cloud, so we don't have to worry about DR as much, but you still do. I mean, Office 365, it's still your data, it's still your email. Does Microsoft really care that you lost a couple of emails? Probably not, because they have millions and millions of customers out there. So what are you going to do in that situation when you have a lawsuit coming and you have to have those emails available? It's those questions that you have to be able to answer to the business.
Well, I was also going to kind of add to that, and it'll tie into what we're going to talk about next, is how does the cloud factor into your disaster recovery model if you do have the opportunity to have this conversation and make it happen. So before we move on to that, we good?
Yeah, we're good.
All right. All right, so modern virtualization solutions, cost is still going to potentially be an issue, right?
I don't think that's ever going to go away. There's going to be a cost for everything.
So it then becomes the approach you use to sell this. So,
I mean, there's different ways. You can, if you're still on premises, you back up to the cloud. And, that is your part of your DR plan. Good backup tapes, but you got to test your backup tapes. Do your restore tests. I used to work at an organization where we did quarterly restore testing to validate that we could actually restore our backups and the applications would actually work. We could say that we actually restored our applications. Just because you back it up doesn't mean it works. And you still have to keep that version of the backup tapes.
So today, I think that the conversation that you're having with your leaders is not the one where you're going to go lights out your data center and say, I need a disaster recovery plan because, look, the business isn't functioning.
You could. It's happened.
But we did not recommend it. You'd be like, yeah, these girls at VMware said I should unplug my data center. No. The conversation is around, like Phoummala mentioned, backups, making sure you have a good backup and recovery model. It's cloud. With the cloud options, I've talked to several companies this week already that have options for you to do backup to cloud. And because you're not necessarily powering on those resources, the compute charges aren't there. There's still a cost, but it's not a high spend to have that insurance policy. You can then light up when you're ready. You can incur those compute charges when you're ready to do a test. That test is so important. And then you can spin it back down, and again, it reduces that cost. So to me, cloud is a huge part of these business continuity conversations you're having today.
And it starts from the very beginning, especially if you're implementing a new technology. That first, one of the first talks should be, what happens if this goes down? What happens if the application goes down, or if you're doing SaaS? What happens if the vendor, host, you can't connect to it, or there's something going on, they lose our data? What happens in that situation? The business should be aware of what what the impact is going to be, and there should be something as a standby. I mean, I work in an organization now, and we've got high availability for just about everything except for one certain thing, and it went down. Our business was down for 8 hours. What do you do in that situation? You have to bring those conversations up to the business to let them know that, hey, this is a business continuity. How do we keep our business running when something goes wrong?
Well, that's a really good point. So in terms of the industries represented here, is anybody working for a publicly traded company? Okay. So business continuity, has that been part? I can't recall if your hand went up. Are you doing disaster recovery or business continuity? You have been, okay. Okay, you go to secondary. Okay, you could recover in 4 hours. I'm just reiterating for the recording. Oh. Okay. Sure. So DR doesn't win. All right, we need to wrap up. There's one more quick point I wanted to mention with the publicly traded space and the outage. What are you willing to take on for an outage? I know companies that I've worked with in that space, it can actually be a promise to the shareholders. There will be no outage, or if we have a disaster, we'll be back online in 2 hours or 4 hours. So what are you willing to put up with? What will be tolerated by the business? All right, so with that concludes our presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody,
for joining us today.